Another major piece of the puzzle of the Gilded Age is immigration. So, for Section 8 of Unit 6, we are going to talk immigration during the time of the Gilded Age. Some background. We need to know the difference between immigration and migration. Immigration is the action of coming to live permanently in a foreign country. During the Gilded Age, people from all over the world are going to immigrate to the United States. And I love the image that is on your screen right there because we see this U.S. Arc that's supposed to represent the United States, and you see all of the people coming towards it two by two by two. And they're of all different backgrounds, of all walks of life. And it really does represent that imagery of coming to the United States, of taking on different people. And migration is going to be the movement of one part of something to another. So during the Gilded Age, we're also going to see migration of Americans from rural to urban areas. Remember that urbanization that we talked about earlier. Okay, we have factors and we have pull factors that are going to cause immigration to the United States at this time. A push factor is going to be those that drive people to leave their home countries. Okay, these could be famine, it could be war, it could be religious or political persecution, it could be a disrupted economy or an economic depression. It could be religious intolerance. These are often negative factors that push people out to seek safety and prosperity somewhere else. Pull factors are those that draw people into a new place. This could be economic opportunity, it could be religious freedom, it could be the opportunity to have land, it could be political freedom. These are often positive factors that pull people in to choosing to live in a new place, in a new specific place. We have three phases of immigration that we're going to look at. The first phase we have already studied at length. We just need a reminder of this. This is the colonial immigration phase. So, who was it that was coming in colonial immigration? This is going to be colonists coming from England. When were they coming? The 17th and 18th centuries. Now, in US, or not even US history, in all of history, when we look at a century, when we say 17th century, we're talking about the 1600s. When we say 18th century, we're talking about the 1700s. It is always -1, add the 2 zeros. That's how we do the centuries. So they're coming in the 1600s and 1700s or the 17th and 18th centuries. Why did they come? What were their push-pull factors? So their pull factor was the promise of land and prosperity. Remember, England was an island. They were running out of space. They wanted their own opportunity. They wanted their own chance to have their own land. And their push factor was religious persecution. Remember those Puritans coming here to purify the Church of England. Where did they settle? This is going to be the eastern coast of North America, from North Carolina to Maine, okay? All along that eastern coast. And what were the difficulties that they faced when they arrived here? First, they're going to face famine. Remember the lost colony of Roanoke, the failed colony at Jamestown, not knowing how to farm or work the land because it was so different than what they had in England. They're also going to face conflicts with the Native Americans. Remember, this starts the centuries old conflict between colonists, settlers, and Native Americans, and this conflict would go into the United States history, that we're constantly pushing the Native Americans off of their land so that we can grow. So the difficulties they faced were famine and conflicts with the Native Americans. All right, the second phase of immigration is called Old Immigration. This is known as the WASPs, okay, the White Anglo-Saxon Protestants. So who were they? This is going to be mainly Irish, British, German, coming here during the time period between 1840 and 1860, so the time period leading up to the Civil War. At the very beginning of this second industrial revolution, remember it starts really in the 1850s. Why did they come here? These are going to be the push factors, okay? The Irish potato famine, religious and political persecution. That's going to create instability in their home countries, pushing out the Irish, British, German. Where did they settle? They're going to kind of settle all over the board, all right? They're going to settle in rural and urban areas. And the goal really was to work hard to build a life for themselves. Coming here to start a new life was the goal. What difficulties does they face? Not many. They'll easily settle into American culture, often having family here already, or having some kind of roots that drew them to the place that they settled in, whether that be in the rural areas or the urban areas. And what I want to really highlight here is when we look at the Irish, British, German, and you look at them standing next to the Americans that were already here during this time period, they aren't going to look very different, okay? These people aren't going to be able to be picked out of a crowd and noticeably different than those that were already here, mainly because that's where our roots already were. A lot of Americans can trace their ancestry back to these places, so it's not very far off from the Americans that were already here, which lends a hand into why they didn't face very many difficulties in settling here. So I want you to take a peek at the map that we see there, because this is going to highlight where we're going next. This is going to be immigration from 1870 to 1910, which is the second industrial revolution, the Gilded Age that we were talking about. Now, in the beginning, that period of 1870 to 1890, you're going to see Northern and Western Europe, which includes Germany, be really the peak of immigrants coming to the United States. That's the same group that we're talking about here. But in 1890, you see a shift of who's coming into the United States, 1890 to 1910. And that's going to be Southern and Eastern European, which includes Poland, Austria, Spain, and Italy. And notice the big difference there in who is coming to the United States. And that leads us right into the third phase of immigration. This is almost always a question on the Regents. Who was this new wave of immigrants coming to the United States? It was Southern and Eastern Europeans. Okay, if we look at that map that's up at the top, you're going to see the places that are coming here: Italy, Austria, Hungary, Poland, Germany, France, Ireland, Russia, Norway, Japan, China. This is an incredibly diverse group of immigrants coming to the United States, diverse in both language and religion. You're going to see languages that we do not understand, religions that we do not recognize coming in with this third phase of immigrants. Religions like Catholic, Jewish, Eastern Orthodox. something that we did not know of before. Remember, the WASPs, white, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant, that is not this group of people, okay? The time period that we're talking about here is going to be 1880 to 1920. So a very down the line after the Civil War, really in the thick of the Gilded Age, the time period that they're coming to the United States. Why did they come here? There's going to be many push factors that push immigrants to come to the United States during this time. It's going to be religious persecution, economic and political instability that push people to the United States. Uh, why did they move here? What did they do? Where did they settle? They're going to move to industrial jobs, and that's what's going to create the most tension between this new group of immigrants and Americans that are already here. They're coming to seek opportunity, as you can see on the map. Look at where all of those lines are going to. They're all going to New York City, that along the eastern coast in that one place, because that's where the jobs were. Japan and China going to California, and really focusing on the industrial jobs in the factories, in the railroad industry, drawing them in as a new opportunity, a way to rise through the social classes, get that rags to riches story, and America, the place that offered it all. The difficulties faced because of the differences in these groups of people, in religion, in language, in culture. There is going to be a fear created in Americans, that offers up the difficulties to these immigrants, that offers a discrimination of Americans against this group of immigrants. Uh, Americans were afraid that they were going to lose jobs, afraid that they were going to see the American culture go away. They feared uh, competition in this group of immigrants coming to the cities to compete for that limited number of factory jobs that they were already competing against other Americans for. So this group, more so than any other group, faced extreme difficulty. I also want you to think now, at this point in time, the United States has been its own country for over 100 years. Many in America have rooted themselves in this American culture. We have built a background, we have built a story as a nation. So when this group of immigrants comes to the United States, and they are so different than what the perceived American was, we see it as a direct threat to our culture, our way of life. And there is nothing more scary than someone threatening what you are as a person. So, again, our history up until this time, up until this point, will contribute to this fear. I also want you to notice that during this time, 1880 to 1920, the United States is going to be experiencing some economic downturns. Remember, we've talked about the Panic of 1873. There's going to be another panic in the 1890s. And when there is a panic, that economic downturn, we see a high unemployment, lower wages, and that increases the competition between people for jobs. So, again, we're going to see that during this time period, it's kind of a recipe for disaster. These immigrants coming in with this third phase are going to face heavy criticism, because all of these puzzle pieces coming together create fear in Americans, fear to their way of life, fear to their culture, fear to their social standing, fear of losing their jobs, fear in competition, and it will create a very negative, volatile existence between Americans and this new immigrant coming in. Now, I want to stress this one last time. The new immigrants coming in, Southern and Eastern European, okay? Southern and Eastern European. The next time we come together, we're going to look at the reaction of the government to immigrants coming in and the reaction of the people in the United States and how immigrants came to be in America, what that looked like once they got here.